UNTV News and Rescue.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, July 19, 2016. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are here to give you carefully gathered stories, assuring you of accurate, truthful, and balanced newscasts. I'm Gerry Alcantara.
We are also seen in 1,360 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through www.untvweb.com. And this is Y News. Here are the headlines. The Supreme Court acquits former President Gloria Arroyo over plunder charges. The Sandiganbayan issues a whole departure order against former Vice President Jejomar Binay and son Junjun Binay. The Liberal Party decides not to join the supermajority in the House of Representatives.
President Rodrigo Duterte approves the roadmap for the peace process. At least 100 million pesos worth of agriculture equipment was discovered rusting at the Department of Agriculture compound in South Cotabato. And Brandon Knight of the Phoenix Suns arrives in the Philippines for the NBA Fit Week.
First in the news, the Supreme Court has dismissed the plunder case of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo in connection to the alleged anomalous disbursement of 366 million pesos fund of Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office or PCSO. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
The Supreme Court has cleared former President and now Pampanga Congresswoman Gloria Arroyo of plunder in connection to the alleged anomalous disbursement of PCSO funds. Voting 11-4, the court grants Arroyo's demurrer to evidence and dismisses the case for insufficiency of evidence. The court also orders the immediate release of Arroyo from the Veterans Memorial Medical Center where she is held under hospital arrest since October 2012.
Wherefore, the court grants the petitions for certiorari, annuls and sets aside the resolutions issued in criminal case number SB-12-CRM-0174 by the Sandiganbayan on April 6, 2015 and September 10, 2015. Grants the petitioners respective demurrers to evidence, dismisses criminal case number SB-12-CRM-0174 as to the petitioners Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and Benigno Aguas for insufficiency of evidence, orders the immediate release from detention of said prisoners.
The decision was written by Associate Justice Lucas Bersamin and concurred in by Justices Presbitero Velasco Jr., Teresita Leonardo de Castro, Arturo Brion, Diosdado Peralta, Mariano del Castillo, Jose Perez, Jose Mendoza, Bienvenido Reyes, Estela Perlas Bernabe, and Francis Hardeleza. Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, and Justices Marvic Leonen and Alfredo Benjamin Cagiwa dissented. The court also cleared Arroyo's co-accused Benigno Aguas, who is a former budget officer of PCSO. The case against Arroyo and Aguas is stemmed from the alleged anomalous disbursement of 366 million peso PCSO funds from 2008 to 2010. Arroyo's camp expresses gratitude to the Supreme Court because she will be freed after almost 4 years in detention.
Every minute, every second na nakakulong yung tao na walang sala naman o pinawalang sala, then an injustice is being done. That's why we're here hoping na ma-release within the day. If not, then as soon as possible.
Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Supreme Court.
Pampanga Rep. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo might not be able to go home yet today. Grace Casin tells us why.
At 4:30 in the afternoon, docket section of the Sandiganbayan closed without receiving the copy of the decision of the Supreme Court acquitting Pampanga Representative Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. According to one of Arroyo's lawyer, Attorney Jose Flaminiano, GMA is ready and has already packed her things. Her son Mikey and her grandchildren are in the hospital, but Mikey refused to comment on her mother's reaction. Attorney Angelito Mendoza said aside from her relatives, her friends are also inside the hospital. Mendoza adds that CGMA is now preparing to do her work as a lawmaker once he returns to Congress. Among her plans is to attend the first State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte and join the National Security Council meeting. Meanwhile, lawyers say that once Arroyo is released, she will go directly to their house in La Vista Subdivision, Quezon City. In a statement, Arroyo thanked President Duterte and the members of the Supreme Court. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Malacanang respects the decision of the Supreme Court acquitting former President and now Congresswoman Gloria Macapagal Arroyo over the alleged anomalous spending of PCSO funds. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
Presidential spokesman Ernesto Abella announced that the Malacanang respects the decision of the Supreme Court acquitting former President and now Pampanga Representative Gloria Arroyo over the alleged anomalous spending of Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office funds. For his part, Presidential Communications Secretary Martin Andanar says it is better to respect the ruling of the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process Secretary Jesus Dureza, a former member of the Arroyo cabinet, says the decision of the Supreme Court thus manifests that justice is served to the Arroyo camp.
And of course, personally, because I served under President Arroyo, I rejoiced over this decision that had already given him what she rightly deserves, which is justice. We talked on the phone on my way here, and I congratulated her. And so she said that, from the background, I could hear so many people there. Okay. So maraming bumisita sa kanya. Because I have been visiting her with my wife many times over. And so, on a personal note, not expressing anybody's feelings, but I'm so elated that justice had been served with this decision.
President Rodrigo Duterte has been vocal of his position regarding Arroyo's case. Duterte has offered Arroyo pardon, but the latter turned down the offer due to implication that accepting the offer would translate her being guilty of the accusation. As of the moment, President Duterte has yet to speak of his statement on the acquittal of the former president. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue.
The Sandiganbayan Anti-Graft Court releases a whole departure order against former Vice President Jejomar Binay and 11 more, including his son Junjun Binay. Rosalie Cos is back to tell us why.
The Sandiganbayan 3rd Division Chairperson and Chief Justice Amparo Cabutahitang released a whole departure order against former Vice President Jejomar Binay, his son Junjun Binay, and others effective today. The whole departure order, or HDO, was released in relation with the charges filed against the Binays, particularly the violation of Section 3E of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act or Republic Act 3019, falsification of public documents and malversation.
Whole departure orders, or HDO, are issued to maintain the effectiveness of the court's exercise of its jurisdiction over the cases. So, although this has nothing to do with the existence or non-existence of probable cause.
The court clarifies that under the whole departure order of an accused, he or she can still travel outside the country if the court permits.
All of the accused or any of the accused may travel abroad, but it is required that they must first secure the permit coming from the court.
Binays were charged because of allegedly anomalous construction of Makati Car Park building worth 2.2 billion pesos from 2007 to 2013. Aside from Binays, other former employees and officials are also facing the same charges. Meanwhile, the Binay camp believes their cases in the anti-graft court will be eventually dismissed. Rosalie Coz, UNTV News and Rescue, Sandiganbayan.
The Liberal Party in the House of Representatives has opted to be in the minority. Victor Cosare will tell us why.
Members of the Liberal Party at the House of Representatives will not anymore join the majority bloc, but rather will be in the minority bloc or the opposition in the lower house. This was the consensus of the majority of the attendees in a meeting of LP congressmen earlier today. Meanwhile, outgoing House Speaker Feliciano Belmonte will seek to get the leadership post of the minority bloc. The other possible contenders for the position are Congressman Toby Tiangco of the United Nationalist Alliance or UNA and Quezon Representative Danilo Suarez.
Under me, if elected, which is still an if, we will have a good and credible opposition, which in the long run will be good for the administration.
Belmonte says from 116 members, LP now has at least 40 congressman members and they are expecting that the figure will still go down in the coming days.
A portion of the LP have opted to become the minority. We welcome anybody of any color, our former allies or any of them, or the party list people to join the minority.
LP initially had talks with PDP Laban for a possible coalition to form part of the supermajority in the House of Representatives, but the negotiations did not materialize. Congressman Rodolfo Fariñas, on the other hand, blamed LP on why the talks did not arrive at a positive outcome despite PDP Laban giving in to the requests of the Liberal Party. Fariñas was a former LP member but opted to transfer to the PDP Laban and he is now being eyed to be the next House Majority Leader. Belmonte, however, stressed that even if they will be the opposition at the lower house, they still want the Duterte administration to succeed. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The government peace panel in the Bangsamoro community as well as other rebel groups shall now be following a new roadmap for the peace process. Marge Navarro will tell us why.
The new members of the government peace panel consist of Hernani Braganza, Attorney Rene Sarmiento, Attorney Angela Librado Trinidad, and Attorney Noel Felonco, has sworn into office before President Rodrigo Duterte. Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process Jesus Dureza says the President has also approved the roadmap for the government on peace process. The roadmap covers the role of the Bangsamoro people and other rebel groups on the peace talks.
This will cover our engagements with the Bangsamoro, including the CPP, NPA, NDF, and then of course our effort to do closure to the agreements with the other rebel groups like the CPLA.
The formal resumption of talks between the National Democratic Front of the Philippines or NDFP and the government peace panel has also been set on August 20 in Norway. Included in the agenda is the release of political prisoners. According to Dureza, President Duterte has ordered all concerned agencies to study the possibility of temporary release of political prisoners.
And then we will discuss, of course, the matter about releases of prisoners, and this will be discussed. But we would like to tell you in advance that the President had directed yesterday for the different agencies, concerned agencies of government, to already start working on the possible temporary release of members of the CPP, NPA, NDF who will be participating in the peace negotiations. But the legal procedures will have to be closely followed according to him.
Secretary Dureza asserts that they are committed to enforce the provisions of the Comprehensive Agreement on the Bangsamoro or CAB that has been created under the Aquino administration. On the other hand, the Duterte administration is entrusting the passage of the draft bill on the Bangsamoro Basic Law or BBL to Congress. Marge Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue.
Several experts on the issue of the West Philippine Sea dispute are now discussing the creation of an ASEAN coalition. Yoshiko Sata tells us why.
Several experts on the issue of territorial disputes in the West Philippine Sea conducted a forum to talk about the building of Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Coalition. The creation of an ASEAN coalition aims to renew the multilateral response of ASEAN regarding international issues like the South China Sea dispute. 1 week after the Permanent Court of Arbitration's ruling, the association has not released a joint statement about the territorial disputes. Deputy Director Murray Hebert of the Southeast Asia Program says the ASEAN Secretary had a draft statement, but it was not officially released.
We understand that the ASEAN Secretary prepared a draft statement. It's been circulated, but China's closest friends seem to have blocked the release.
Former Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario attended the said forum. According to the former DFA Secretary, the exchange of opinions of the experts is essential to understand what the ASEAN coalition can contribute to the unity of Southeast Asian nations.
This is unfortunate, but I think what ASEAN should do is, as Murray had said, they could look for an equation where those who don't want to say anything are abstracted from those who want to deliver a message. And the message these days is the rule of law must be adhered to. We'd like to move forward with ASEAN on board. So I think it's very important that we continue to do this and we continue to work with other nations in the responsible community of nations. And the world has to hear this.
The idea of building an ASEAN coalition will be presented during the ASEAN ministerial meeting from July 23 to 26 in Laos. Yoshiko Sata, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
Y News, we'll be right back. The National Capital Region Police Office confirms that barricades will not be put up along Commonwealth Avenue towards Batasang Pambansa on the first State of the Nation address or SONA of President Rodrigo Duterte on July 25. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
The National Capital Region Police Office will no longer put barricades and container vans as barrier along Commonwealth Avenue on President Rodrigo Duterte's State of the Nation address on Monday. However, some parts of Commonwealth Avenue will be closed starting from Every Cotesco Mall to Sandiganbayan in front of Jokfer Building. NCRPO Police Chief Superintendent Oscar Albayalde says they have not yet monitored any threat against Duterte's SONA and they do not expect any anti-government protest on Monday.
Do not expect violent rallies ngayon. Yung in-expect nating mga rallies are actually supporters ng ating presidente. And we take lessons from yung sa Malacanang na pinapasok.
Albayalde, however, says that they have prepared contingency plans should the president allow the protesters to get near the Batasan complex.
Piniprepare natin yun nga baka payagan na lumapit yung mga supporters, no. So yun ang mas binabantayan natin ngayon. Baka magpilit na pumasok mismo dun sa Batasan.
General Albayalde adds that they will deploy around 16,000 police on the day of the SONA, from which 11,000 will be deployed within the vicinity of the Batasang Pambansa complex. A total of 500 Special Action Force troopers will be assigned for the Task Force Antabay. Despite no threat monitored, the NCRPO assures that they will impose full alert status in Metro Manila before this weekend. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Tourists along the northbound lane of EDSA are experiencing heavy traffic Victor Cosare is at EDSA PhilAm to tell us why live. Go ahead, Victor.
Diego, the volume of vehicles passing along the northbound of EDSA from Magallanes to Guadalupe is causing heavy traffic along that stretch. Meanwhile, here's the traffic situation on the other parts of EDSA. Light to moderate traffic prevails on both directions of EDSA from Balintawak to Kamuning. However, movement of vehicles slows down as they approach Cubao Aurora to the White Plains area. Also, moderate to heavy traffic is being experienced by motorists at the northbound side of EDSA from Pioneer to Ortigas Avenue. Traffic buildup also prevails at the Taft Avenue area. Meanwhile, the whole stretch of Rojas Boulevard is experiencing light to moderate traffic except from UN Avenue to Raha Sulaiman. The traffic situation along España is still moderate to heavy up to this moment. Moderate to heavy traffic also prevails along Ortigas from Connecticut to the C5 flyover. Traffic is also slow moving from Market to Eastwood in Libis, Quezon City, that is along the C5 road. And that's the latest traffic situation. Back to you, Diego.
Thank you for that report, Victor Cosare, reporting live from EDSA PhilAm. The Department of Transportation will investigate the cause of the damage of the pavement of the NAIA runway that led some international and domestic flights to be diverted to Clark International Airport yesterday. Monokson will tell us why.
Department of Transportation Secretary Arthur Togade apologizes to all affected passengers of the runway closure yesterday. Togade does not want to pass the blame on the previous administration and thus takes full responsibility of the problem. The Transportation Department will implement new Standard Operating Procedures or SOP regarding the matter.
Ako ho ang nakaupo ngayon dito, hindi ho ako titingin sa nakaraan. Ako ho ang nakaupo dito, responsibilidad po namin yan. Nangyari ho yan, please accept our apologies and we will do our utmost best that a repeat will never happen.
Normal operations in the NAIA complex has been restored after the damaged pavement on runway 624 was repaired last night. Repairs finished at 10:35 p.m. but hundreds of flights have been affected. The Manila International Airport Authority said a total of 53 departure flights, 76 arrivals, and about 8 international flights have been affected, while 41 domestic flights have been cancelled. Although MIA insists that the materials used on the runway are not substandard, the Department of Transportation will still look into it to enable authorities to come up with an effective plan for the coming days. The asphalt overlay was done in 2013. It is supposed to last until 2018, but problems have started occurring much earlier.
You can have scientific methodologies to examine the material that was used.
The Civil Aeronautics Board lauded the airline companies. CAB says that what happened is considered as a force majeure and airline companies have no obligation to the passengers. But instead of charging the passengers, airline companies allowed rebooking fee free of charge. Some even gave food for the passengers. But there are many things that must be done for the sake of the affected passengers.
There are not enough buses. So these are one of the things that we should review. No? Well, how do we deal with this situation? Do we compel the airlines to provide standby buses in cases of emergency?
The office of the CAB is open to accept complaints from affected passengers. Monok Son, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development identifies poverty as the main cause of child abuse. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
Yung usapin ng kahirapan na siyempre maraming inaanak na kalagayan yan. Related din ito dun sa ating poverty incidence, no? Yung kalagayan ng komunidad, yung kawalan ng hanap buhay, kawalan ng oportunidad, yung edukasyon din, no? So, sabihin lahat ng ito nagko-contribute.
Based on reports received by the Department of Social Welfare and Development on cases of child abuse, most often poverty is a major factor that pushes parents to commit the abuse. This includes child trafficking and child labor. One example is a physical abuse inflicted on a 3-year-old child in Mexico, Pampanga. Aside from physical abuse, one of the things being monitored by the department is how the children are being used in selling illegal drugs.
Isa na rin sigurong kaugnay din doon sa child trafficking, no? Nagagamit din yung ating mga bata, no, ng mga drug syndicates. Victimize sila. Siyempre tingin ko ang pinakamarahas na pwedeng mangyari sa mga kabataan ay yung hindi masolusyonan yung matinding kagutuman, no, at kahirapan.
According to DSWD, we could hasten to solve the increasing number of different kinds of child abuse in the country when we start the strengthening of programs in communities. This is not only the department's fight, but also of different agencies in the government in order to save lives and give the youth a decent future. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The National Capital Region Police Office has recorded a significant decline in the crime rate in Metro Manila from July 2015 to July 2016. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
Based on crime trend of the National Capital Region Police Office, crime rate has declined in Metro Manila. According to NCRPO Director Police Chief Superintendent Oscar Albayalde, this includes murder, homicide, robbery, theft, such as stealing of motor vehicle and motorcycle, and physical injury. During second semester of 2015, specifically July to December, the daily average of crime recorded is only at 77, and it declined to 59 during the first semester of 2016, or between January to June. From July 1 to 15, only 52 cases were recorded since the day PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa assumed office.
Tama yung sinabi ng ating Chief PNP na bumaba yung ating street crimes. These are all considered street crimes kasi nangyari sa streets. Ito ang epekto ng ating kampanya laban sa droga because most of the street crimes are related sa illegal drugs.
However, there is a significant increase in the number of murder and homicide cases. During the second semester of 2015, homicide cases recorded an average of 1 case per day. The same figure was recorded during the first quarter of 2016, but the figure increased to 2 from July 1 to 15 from the day the Duterte administration assumed office. Murder cases recorded 3 per day on the average during the second semester, 2 per day during the first semester of 2016, and 4 on the average from July 1 to 15.
Well, yung murder natin, no, homicide, medyo tumaas. It's because of the incidents nga dun sa yung incidents of founded bodies natin sa lansangan.
Based on record, since July 1, legitimate killing during police operations in Metro Manila has increased to 70. Drug users who voluntarily surrender has reached to 18,749, and victims of summary executions that are still under investigation has reached to 37. Although about 92% of the total 1,706 barangays are affected by illegal drugs, the police is confident that the crimes will be solved within the next 3 to 6 months because of the continuous anti-illegal drugs campaign. They also assure that police personnel do not violate the human rights of anyone because they are trained under former CHR Commissioner Wilhelm Soriano, who makes round and conducting seminar in every police station. Aside from those killed in drug operations, the NCRPO says they have not received any complaints of abuse against police on duty. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Agriculture equipment worth at least 100 million pesos was found rusting inside the Department of Agriculture compound in South Cotabato. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Several modern agriculture equipment worth 100 million pesos have been discovered idle and rusting inside the Agriculture Department's compound in Tupi, South Cotabato. They were discovered when Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol visited the place last Monday. Some of the equipment include a tractor that has been stalled for more than a year and rice and corn harvesters brought about 4 years ago, which amount to millions of pesos per unit. Piñol says the equipment were not delivered because farmers were asked to pay the 15% of the equipment's amount before they could use it. It was said that the previous administration agreed to shoulder 85% of the equipment's worth. The secretary has ordered an auditing of the fund for the project. Some of the equipment will undergo rehabilitation and repair before being delivered to the farmers. The former regional director in the area was immediately relieved after Piñol assumed as the agriculture secretary. The issue is being investigated to identify the liable officials who will be held responsible of the purchase and failure of delivery of the said equipment. Piñol said production in the past years could have been increased if the equipment were distributed in time for the use of the farmers. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Senate respects President Rodrigo Duterte's position on the Paris Agreement on climate change. Brian De Paz will tell us why.
On April 22, 2016, the Aquino administration signed the historic Paris Agreement on climate change. The Philippines then promised to reduce its carbon emission to 70% until 2030 with the help of the international community. 178 nations signed the agreement, but so far, only 19 countries have ratified and approved their respective laws limiting greenhouse gas emissions. The Philippines version has not yet been ratified to this day. For his part, President Rodrigo Duterte believes that the international agreement is only a roadblock to national progress, such as in the Philippines.
Sabi ko, you do not do it that way, Mr. Ambassador. You who have reached your apex and along the way spewed a lot of contaminants and emissions and will ahead in destroying the climate. Good for you. We are here. We have not reached the age of industrialization. We are going into it. But you are trying to stymie us with an agreement na hanggang dito lang kayo, we maintain the present emission. Oh, that's stupid. I will not honor that. Sabi niya, but you signed that was not my signature.
But for Senate President Franklin Drilon, the President serves as the architect of the country's foreign policy, and so his position on the issue must be respected.
The President is the architect of our foreign policy. He is the principal actor insofar as foreign policy is concerned. We respect the position of the President.
Senator Drilon says it is the job of the Senate to ratify or approve an agreement. But if the Chief Executive refuses to endorse the legislation to the Senate, then they should respect his decision.
The role of the Senate is treaty ratification. If President Duterte, as a matter of policy, has decided that we will not ratify the agreement, then that is a prerogative that he has as Chief Executive.
Drilon adds that the issue is similar to the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA in the past.
Then President Aquino took the position that EDCA is not a treaty which requires concurrence and therefore did not send it to the Senate. The Supreme Court sustained the President and said indeed it was not a treaty which required the concurrence by the Senate.
Brian De Paz, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate.
Mindanao will experience cloudy skies with light to moderate rains due to the effects of a tropical wave. The same weather condition will also be experienced in Samar and Leyte areas. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers and thunderstorms will prevail over Metro Manila and the rest of the country. Temperature in Metro Manila has reached 34 degrees Celsius today. No tropical cyclone is expected to affect the country for the next 2 days.
Y News will be right back. After 16 years, World AIDS Conference returns to South Africa while protesters march on the streets of Durban City as the Global AIDS Conference opens. Precious Ong tells us why.
The 5-day annual International AIDS Conference opened in the port city of Durban, South Africa yesterday at the International Convention Center with the theme Access Equity Rights Now. At the epicenter of the worldwide AIDS pandemic, South Africa now boasts the largest treatment program in the world, with 3.4 million people receiving the antiretroviral drugs that allow those living with HIV to lead normal lives. Today, 7 million South Africans, 19% of the adult population, live with HIV. Amongst dignitaries was humanitarian Charlize Theron, who delivered a moving address to the industry players and members of society in a fully packed auditorium.
AIDS does not discriminate on its own. It has no biological preference for black bodies, for women's bodies, for gay bodies, for youth or the poor. It doesn't single out the vulnerable, the oppressed, or the abused. We single out the vulnerable, the oppressed, and the abused. We ignore them, we let them suffer, and then we let them die.
A press briefing with the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was also held.
To end this epidemic, we must close the gaps that keep people from accessing services and living with dignity. We have to expand resources, science, and services. And we have to protect and promote the rights of people living with HIV, gay men, and other men who have sex with men, transgender people, sex workers, and people who inject drugs, and prisoners. When we do this, we can end stigma and discrimination, prevent the spread of HIV, and save lives.
Meanwhile, thousands of protesters raising their country's flags marched through Durban City Center on Monday, demanding access to treatment for the 20 million people across the world suffering from AIDS and tuberculosis. The march includes members of the Treatment Action Campaign and civil society.
This is a global march for access to antiretroviral treatment for the 20 million people in different parts of the world who still do not have treatment and who are still dying of AIDS and dying of tuberculosis. It's a global march to wake the world up to the fact that there are still 1 million deaths a year due to HIV infection, and to say that that is a global crisis when so many people are dying.
Precious Ong, UNTV News and Rescue.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has approved the anti-terrorism law that provides stricter rules on missionary activities. Rose Shane Santiago tells us why.
Why, despite protests and appeals from religious communities and human rights advocates, Russian President Vladimir Putin signs a new law against public evangelization. The Revival law or the new anti-terrorism law will be effective on July 20, aiming to impose stricter security measures against any act of terrorism. The law, however, has become the center of criticisms as it restricts religious freedom. Under the new law, believers who talk to other people about God outside the accredited church congregation can be punished. Reading the Bible or praying in front of an unbeliever is punishable by law, as workers will be allowed to share their faith only if they have a permit. The law also prohibits Christians from using online tools like email to share their faith or invite friends to church. Citizens who observe religious activities in their neighbors' homes should report it to the authorities or they will be punished. Missionaries who share the gospel to random persons they meet can be fined up to $780 or more than 36,500 pesos for an individual violator, while $15,500 or more than 725,800 pesos for an organization, including deportation. This has prompted concerns among Filipinos, especially about their religious practices and spiritual well-being.
Sobra po akong nalungkot nung mabasa ko po yung balita na yan. Kasi nga po, di ba po, pag nandito po tayo sa ibang bansa, Diyos lang naman po ang nilalapitan natin pag may problema tayo.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Embassy in Russia will study the consequences of the official version of the law once it has been formally released. The embassy will also coordinate with the Russian authorities and experts in order to fully understand the provisions of the law. Why the new law is compared to the Soviet Communist era in 1929, wherein the religious freedom was restricted. Roshane Santiago, UNTV News and Rescue, Moscow, Russia.
Melania Trump's speech at a raucous Republican convention bears similarities with Michelle Obama's speech in 2008. Meanwhile, 26 people on board a tourist coach died in Taiwan. Nunez, tell us why.
In Taiwan, a tourist coach caught fire in a highway near Taoyuan Airport in China's Taiwan on Tuesday, killing all 26 people on board, including 23 tourists and a tour guide from the mainland's northeast Liaoning province. The other two dead were a Taiwanese driver and a local tour guide, according to the Taiwan authorities. Police had arrived at the site to find the origin of fire and investigate the cause of the accident. Witnesses said smokes were seen coming out from the forepart of the coach before it crashed into guardrails on the roadside and caught fire. In Pakistan, the kidnapped son of a Pakistani senior judge returned home today after the army said it had rescued him from his Taliban captors. Awais Shah, the son of Sindh Provincial Chief Justice Sajjad Ali Shah, was kidnapped from outside a supermarket in the southern port city of Karachi on June 21. Army spokesman General Asim Bajwa said he was found on Tuesday in the back seat of a car in a town bordering the northwestern tribal areas. He was bound in chains with his mouth taped shut and wearing an all-enveloping burqa to hide his identity, he added. Bajwa said 3 terrorists were killed during the rescue and that the kidnappers belonged to a splinter faction of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or TTP. In America, Donald Trump's wife Melania, in her first major political speech on Monday, July 18, portrayed her husband as a talented, compassionate, and unrelenting leader who would unify rather than divide the country if elected to the White House. The Slovenian-born jewelry designer and former model delivered the speech, part of which referred to the values held by her family, resembling an address given by current First Lady Michelle Obama in 2008 to a cheering crowd at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland after a 1-minute introduction from Trump.
From a young age, my parents impressed on me the values that you work hard for what you want in life, that your word is your bond, and you do what you say and keep your promise, that you treat people with respect.
And Barack and I were raised with so many of the same values. Like, you work hard for what you want in life. that your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do, that you treat people with dignity and respect.
Because we want our children in this nation to know that the only limit to your achievements is the strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
We want our children and all children in this nation to know that the only limit to the height of your achievements is the reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard for them.
A Trump campaign official did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the similarity. Ann Nunez, UNTV News and Rescue.
Phoenix Suns point guard Brandon Knight is now here in Manila. Rina Villamor will tell us why.
Phoenix Suns point guard Brandon Knight is here in Manila to grace the opening of the NBA Fit Week. This is the third year of NBA Gatorade to conduct an elite training for Filipino athletes. According to the 6'3" point guard, this is his first time to visit the Philippines and is very much excited to be part of the Gatorade NBA Fit Week. Brandon mentioned during the interview that he will not only focus on teaching basketball skills, but will also give tips on proper nutrition and good sleeping habits to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
And like I said, for me, it's just sharing my experiences and letting them ask questions and letting them know what it takes to not just be an NBA athlete, but to just know what it takes to maintain a healthy lifestyle in general as a human being.
Brandon was joined by PBA coach Nick Velasco and player Sudan Daniel at the event held in Marriott Hotel, where he asked the members of the media to participate along with the kids to do some basketball drills. Also here in the Philippines is former NBA slam dunk champion D. Brown to conduct an exclusive coaches session for professional and collegiate coaches. The NBA Fit Week started last Monday, July 18, and will finish on Friday. Rina Villamor, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Sweden calls Henrik Stensson's win in the British Open magic and fantastic. Meanwhile, an independent report finds evidence of state-sponsored doping by Russian athletes at the Sochi Olympics. Aaron Romero tells us why.
Evidence of widespread state-sponsored doping by Russian athletes at the Sochi Olympics was confirmed on Monday in a report by an independent commission of the World Anti-Doping Agency. According to the report, which was led by Canadian law professor and sports lawyer Richard McLaren and was unveiled at the Toronto News Conference, a Moscow laboratory protected Russian athletes during the 2014 Sochi Winter Games.
Our commission of investigation uncovered the following. First, the Moscow laboratory operated for the protection of doped Russian athletes within a state-directed fail-safe system, which we describe in the report as the disappearing positive methodology. Second, the Sochi laboratory operated a unique sample swapping methodology to enable doped Russian athletes to compete at the Winter Olympic Games. Third, the Russian Ministry of Sport directed, controlled, and oversaw the manipulation of athletes' analytical results, or sample swapping, and the active participation and assistance of the FSB, CSB, and both Moscow and Sochi laboratories.
McLaren was also keen to stress that the findings related to Russian athletes across a range of disciplines, not just athletics. The findings of McLaren's report deepen the doping crisis surrounding Russian athletes, which has sparked a growing movement to have a blanket ban of the country from the August 5 to 21 Rio Olympics. Meanwhile, golfers playing at the Brohof Golf Course near Stockholm on Monday expressed delight at Swede Henrik Stenson becoming the first Scandinavian male to capture a major when he won the British Open on Sunday, beating Phil Mickelson in an extraordinary final round duel. The world number 6 produced an 8-under par 63 to finish 20 under on 264, 3 ahead of playing partner Mickelson. The 40-year-old Stenson's round equaled the lowest in any major championship, and his winning total was also a record for any of the Big Four tournaments. Many of the golfers in Stockholm expressed a hope that young people would be attracted to the game following Stenson's victory. Sweden has seen a decline in active player despite an abundance of golf courses. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
The Progress cargo spacecraft successfully docks at the International Space Station. Monhok Son will tell us why.
The Russian Progress cargo spacecraft, carrying more than 3 tons of food, fuel and supplies for the Expedition 48 crew, successfully docked to the International Space Station or ISS on Monday. Progress 64 arrived at the Pierce docking compartment of the space station a day after a launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on July 17. This docking makes 4 spaceships currently docked at the station. The crew on board of the ISS is also getting ready for another cargo ship delivery. A SpaceX Dragon capsule filled with nearly 5,000 pounds of food, supplies, and equipment, including a metal docking ring of diameter 7.8 feet that will be attached to the station, letting commercial spaceships under development by SpaceX and Boeing Company ferry astronauts to the station, a $100 billion laboratory that flies about 250 miles above Earth. Since NASA retired its fleet of space shuttles 5 years ago, the United States has depended on Russia to ferry astronauts to and from the station at a cost of more than $70 million per person. Monhok Son, UNTV News and Rescue.
A Black Forest ski jump becomes a test of stamina for hundreds of runners. Meanwhile, a group of boats led by the Queen Swan Marker continues the annual royal tradition of swan upping at the River Thames. Precious Ong tells us why.
Usually, the world's best ski jumpers race down the hill in Titisee-Neustadt in Germany. But this weekend, it was the other way around. More than 600 runners from 28 countries took part in Red Bull's 400 event in the Black Forest, running up the ski jump slope instead of sliding down it. After a successful premiere last year, the number of participants more than doubled in 2016. Ahmet Arslan from Turkey managed to reach the finish line first in the men's race. He ran up the 140-meter slope in 3 minutes 40 seconds, with last year's winner Christian Riedel of Germany second and Thomas Stelko from Slovakia third. Turkey also won the women's race with Jasmine Khan timing 4 minutes 41 seconds. Meanwhile, a census of the Queen Swans has taken place annually on the River Thames for the last 800 years. On Monday, a group of boats led by the Queen Swan Marker continued the tradition known as swan upping.
Naturally, we want to keep the swan population to a reasonable size. We've had a lot of problems over the past few years. Last year we had 83 cygnets we caught, weighed and measured. The year before we had 120, so you can see it has declined.
The tradition began in the 12th century, where swans were often killed for food at banquets. Barber said the royal involvement in the process can be traced back to then.
The royal connection dates right back to the 12th century or even earlier. But Her Majesty has the right to own any swan swimming in open waters in the United Kingdom, if she so wishes.
Those who carry out the tradition hope that it helps conserve the future of the birds and educates younger generations. Precious Ong, UNTV News and Rescue.
Those are the reasons behind the news. July 19, 2016. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Gerry Alcantara.
Because we need to know. We will always ask why. Thank you for watching
Why News.